You know what? This election has been an interesting thing for me. It does two things for you. One, you will learn things about yourself. First of all, you will learn whether or not you are willing to stand up in front of people and be held accountable for what you've said. And you will be asked questions that you've never thought to ask yourself. Luckily, what I found out about myself is I'm pretty much who I always thought I was. And this is me. Now, as far as if I ever run again, I don't know. When this election started, I got to tell you a little bit about myself, and maybe this will make some sense. I got so sick and tired of being in law enforcement, I decided I was going to go be a teacher. So I went to the College of the Southwest over in Lee County, New Mexico, and I got my degrees. And while all the other people that are in those classes are sitting there trying to take all of this theory and apply it in a school setting, I'm taking all of this theory and I'm looking at my sheriff's department. And what I'm doing is I'm finding out all these places where we're doing things wrong, and I'm finding out why we're doing them wrong. And I wrestled with that until I realized that what I do is a calling for me. It's not a profession. My badge means more to me than just about anything that I've ever had in my life, and it always has. It has always stood for a very, very sacred promise that I made. Because when I take my oath, there's only two ways you can take an oath, folks. You can either give your word on your own honor, or you can give your word to God. Well, I gave my word to God. And so when my time on this earth is done, I will stand before my Creator. And what I want to hear more than anything else from Him is, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." That is what I hope to hear. So let's talk about some practicality of constitutional leadership and constitutional law enforcement operations. That's the kind of peace officer you want to have elected where you come from. Those are the kinds of questions you want to ask them, and you want to hold them accountable to. You have to take the time to understand what the Constitution requires of a law enforcement officer, requires of a constitutional sheriff. And you have to be willing to hold them to that. So, getting back to what I was talking about how I got into this issue. So I get my degrees, I find out, everything that's wrong in the sheriff's department. And has anybody ever had something laid on them by God? Okay. I used to have people tell me that all the time, and I'd look at them and go, yeah, oh, okay, because it never happened to me. I didn't know what it was like. And then one night I get woke up in the middle of the night, and it's as if the good Lord told me, "Jim, I've given you the training, I've given you the experience, I've made you learn everything there is to learn. Now go do what I told you to do." And this is what I'm supposed to do. To tell you the truth, the campaign's gone in a totally different direction. If I win in Lee County, that's awesome, because I'll have the opportunity to show for 4 years, and 4 years only, folks, that my ideas are right. Because that 5th year before I retire, my intention is to drop down to a deputy and to work under that organization that I created and make sure that what I thought was the right thing. But whether I win or lose is becoming kind of an immaterial point for me, because what I'm starting to realize is what I talk about is far more important than what I do in just one county sometimes. This message has to get out. This message has to be shared, because I can assure you there are a number of peace officers out there that understand this, but they need someone to stand up and say it's okay to talk about it, because it's not what you're normally going to hear from management and law enforcement. Management and law enforcement is not going to tell you these concepts. We need less law enforcement. We absolutely need less cops. We need less restrictive laws. They're not going to tell you that. And we need deputies who understand what it is that they do, and that first and foremost, and by statute, they are the conservators of the peace within their counties. Our primary purpose is to keep the peace and defend the Constitution. Everything else we do is secondary to that. I want to end by telling you a few more things, and then I will get down from here, I promise. Tell you what?
The endorsement.
Oh, my endorsement. I don't know if any of you, probably most of you have probably heard of a fellow by the name of Richard Mack. He's a sheriff over in Arizona. Richard called me a couple of days ago and is endorsing my campaign. I have a lot of respect for that man. He's one of the first ones in my profession to stand up and say we do not have to play the Federals game. And I appreciate him for what he did, and I appreciate even more the fact that he's endorsing the campaign. But I want you to understand this. In my mind, he's not really endorsing the campaign, he's endorsing the concept. And the concept doesn't have anything to do with the man. There are lots of people out there that may like me, may not like me, but the concept that I'm talking to you about is vitally important to our liberty. And so even if you don't live in Lee County, even if you never see me again in your life, remember these concepts. And remember these ideas that the sheriff is the only elected law enforcement officer on the street level. The only one in the United States. Now there has got to be a reason for that. And the reason is because it binds him to the people and to the Constitution before everything else. All other positions can be controlled other ways. You have control of your county sheriff. But we need your cooperation when we do stuff. One more concept I want you to understand, because I've heard it in this crowd. The Sheriff's Department needs to do this, the Sheriff's Department needs to do that. If you tell the Sheriff's Department to do things that really aren't its business to do, you're giving up power, folks, to a governmental agency that you don't have to do. Let the Sheriff's Department focus its energies on those things that it needs to do. Keeping the peace, enforcing the laws that you put on the books. Don't put us in a position where we interpret the law. Don't put us in a position where we make the law. A horrible concept to have is that the men and women who carry the guns can enforce it with arrests. Also can determine what the law is going to be and interpret it. We can't do that, folks. Law enforcement can't do that. So if you have a problem out there, look in your Constitution, and I promise you there is a way to repeal a bill and take individual responsibility for getting involved, because what the sheriff promises to do is support and defend the Constitution, keep the peace, and enforce the laws, not to make them or interpret them. So if you don't like the laws, you've got to stand up and you've got to make your fellow citizens repeal that law, because we are obedient to what you say. So has anybody got anything else? And then I'm going to get down. Okay, I'm going to wander around for the rest of the day. Maybe they'll let me come up and talk again. If anybody has a question, I'm usually right over there. Come put me on the hot seat. I may learn something from you that I don't know. You may learn something from me. As Bob said, this is how we keep our liberty. We talk to each other. We keep in touch with each other. And we debate points. And we find a better way to the truth. So thank you for your time.
All right. Big hand, y'all. We've got time. The band, we're going to do about 4